What's up, guys? Welcome to the Tatted Addicts podcast, where we talk about addiction, recovery, and mental health. I'm your host, Noise, as always. With me today is my guest, Danica.
Yeah.
Danica, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's cool to have you on the show. Danica's going to kind of talk to us about her struggles with addiction, struggles with domestic violence, and what perspired throughout her life to make her make the change to get sober. So, that being said, Danica, appreciate you coming. I guess we'll kind of start with where it all began for you.
When I was a teenager, a lot of people drank in high school and everything. And I also had parents that drank. And when they drank, it made it like so you could excuse behaviors that way. And I realized very soon that it was easy to just say, like, I was drunk. I didn't mean to do that. And that's what started, because I was really shy at first. And I think a lot of people have mental health issues, so I think I had anxiety, and it just helped ease my anxiety.
Yeah.
But when I got to be of age to actually drink, it kind of got a little out of control because there was just no limit, really. I would go to bars a lot. One of my best friends, I puked in my sleep before, and I've known someone that actually died from aspiration that way. And so she got a little bit nervous about it, but she drank too, so she couldn't really say much, and I probably wouldn't have listened anyway. I was prescribed Adderall when I was 16 because I do have ADHD. And then after I became a mom, my ex-husband used a lot of the Adderall and the alcohol as a way to control me. He called Adderall Mommy's Little Helper. And he also got a script, and he would use that, like he would hide them in the house and say I was using too much. But he would snort Adderall. I was actually taking it normally. So he would snort it, and he would drink with me. And that, I think, is what catapulted my severe addiction. I got up to drinking a half gallon a day, and taking a bunch of pills of Adderall, just to get me through the day. At nighttime, I would try to drink to get to sleep. I would use it. I ended up drinking morning, noon, and night because of the fact that I just didn't want to think about what was happening. When I met my ex-husband, I was 21, just about 22 years old, and I had my first son by the age of 23. And I was able to quit everything that I did when I was pregnant both times, but it was like immediately after. Like, I didn't want to breastfeed or anything like that, because then you can't drink or take certain drugs, and
Right.
I just didn't want to have to deal with that and worry about my kids that way. And I think looking back, it seems like my ex-husband like knocked me up to trap me, just because it was like so quickly that, and when we were like 2 months together, he cried because we had a pregnancy scare and I wasn't pregnant. And at that time, I thought, wow, like, this guy really likes me, and it was flattering. But what you learn when you start to get out of domestic violence is the fact that people will love bomb you. And so he definitely was there like all day, every day. I remember it being really strange because I told him on a Mother's Day that I didn't want to see him, and he showed up at my parents' house with a potted plant for me, and I was really confused because I told him I wanted that space, and he didn't respect that, but at the same time he was coming to bring me a gift. And he also liked to party as well, so that's something that we had in common, and we could drink together. He's not someone that judged me for it, and it just seemed to flow really easily. But shortly after I was pregnant, I remember thinking to myself, like, he'll be nicer to me once our son is born. And that didn't happen. It progressively got worse. The first time he had grabbed me and he like punched me in the eye. I had a black eye, and I just told people like I was hanging a shelf up and it fell on me. There was a time where, it is a felony, just so people know, but if someone takes your phone while committing a crime on you, That's a felony, and I didn't know that at the time, but he threw my phone and broke it, so I wouldn't call the police on him. They ended up coming because I ran across the street to the neighbor's house, and I was all bruised up, and so they put a warrant out for his arrest immediately, and he ended up going to jail. He's been to jail 3 or 4 times for domestic violence against me. He just had a horrible temper. People talk about, his eyes would turn black. He had blue eyes, and they would turn black. Another really bad thing to happen with domestic violence is if you get strangled. And when I was pregnant with my second son, he picked me up by my neck and was choking me. And I just looked him in the eyes, and I was just like, kill me already. And like his eyes just kind of went from black back to blue, and he put me down. But it was a horrible situation to live in. And before I met him, like I was like, I would never thought I would become a victim of domestic violence. And it just happens where like people manipulate your mind, and before you know it, your confidence is just gone. And he told me all the time, like I couldn't live without him. He made it so I couldn't work. He would stalk me. He would hack into my phone. And just to deal with all this, I just drank a lot, and it just eased things, just like because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And
An escape.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a very good escape at the time, but escapes are only temporary,
Right.
so you have to deal with that stuff eventually. And it was also a way for, like I said, for him to control me. And I got put into domestic violence counseling because of dealing with the courts and him being charged. And it took a while for it to stick, and like years, because I always thought it's worse for other people, like this isn't that bad. But the last time that he hurt me, I was holding our kid, and he punched me so hard I fell on the couch next to our other kid, and he took our baby away, and was like, next thing I remember, I was curled up on the floor by our front door, and he was kicking me. The police ended up coming, and they put a no contact order put in place, and that they do that often for domestic violence. But he would always come back, and it was really confusing for me because I knew I wasn't supposed to see him, but he would just show up. And he also wanted to like act like a family with our boys, which I didn't want them to be confused because I was trying to follow the law, but also had my own emotions about it. And like he told me he never abused me, and there's a lot of gaslighting going on, or even like his mom at one point said like, what did you do to deserve it? And so, and having an alcoholic mind and being on pills and everything, I did question myself a lot. And so it just progressively got worse. Our kids ended up getting taken and put in the care of my parents because he assaulted me in front of them. And I really think that the criminal justice system needs to update a lot of things because they do not understand domestic violence. He put things in my name so my credit would be shot. He like really tried to make it so I could not go anywhere without him. And after taking therapy for some time, I realized that I wasn't gonna be safe to do like marriage counseling with him. So we just separated, and after my kids got taken, I was a stay-at-home mom. That's when my drinking progressed even further, and that's just like all I did all day, every day. It was just wake up and drink, and at one point I got appendicitis, and a week after, because of the pills that they were giving me, I had a Tylenol overdose, which caused liver and kidney failure, and I was 29. I had to go over in an ambulance to U of M because that's where livers were on site, and I was there for a week. Luckily, livers do heal themselves quite well if you don't get far enough along, but even then, it was maybe a week after, probably not even that long, I started drinking again, But what I would do to be more cautious is I would go to the emergency room to get my blood checked just to make sure it wasn't off, just because I wanted to continue what I was doing. I just wasn't ready to give it up. And I think that's a big thing for people in recovery to realize is like you have to want it for yourself. I had gotten a DUI when I was 26 and they put me, made me do community service at the Alano Club, which is like where AA meetings are.
Yep.
And I got caught drinking before doing community service while I was there, and they sent me into a meeting. I was bawling my eyes out, but I wasn't ready at that time, and I didn't get ready until after taking my kids away, they wanted to give them back. And I do know the criminal justice system enough to know that had I got them back with where I was at and taking pills and drinking, and they found out, they would have been taken from me for good.
Yeah.
So I ended up telling on myself because they had a sobriety counselor that I was going to at Arbor Circle, and also a domestic violence counselor. And I told my domestic violence counselor, like, I can't get my kids back right now. And I told her I was drinking like a half gallon a day. And so she was like, yeah, you're right. You definitely need to get sober. And I ended up, my brother had gone to Brighton rehab, and that's also where Eminem went. And he told me that there was good food there. That's what sold me is the food, but they're a private place, and I had government insurance, and so I ended up calling them to get myself in there on a scholarship. I just asked if they ever did that, and they happened to have some money set aside for people that were like me that couldn't afford it, and I was able to go there for 17 days. There's like 2 buildings there. There's one for like completely inpatient where a doctor's on site 24/7, and then it's called partial. And I was in where the doctor was there 24/7 for 4 days because of my alcohol withdrawals. Because with alcohol and benzos, you have to be, if you're really addicted, you have to be very careful and get medical help because you can die from that. So they had me in there for 4 days, and I just started to realize, like, I'm allowed to be tired. That's okay. Like, I don't need to pop a pill every time I'm tired. And I was basically like a single mom because my ex-husband was just never around. And so I didn't feel like I could be tired at that time because all the responsibilities fell on my shoulders. But realizing I can be tired, like I'm allowed to feel certain emotions and it's okay, was really hard. I remember I made a pink bracelet for one of their little crafting activities, and it broke in a drawer, and I like looked over, and that's what some of my pills looked like sometimes, and I was almost like wanting to take one of the beads.
Triggered.
Yeah. But that was June 20th of 2015, and I was able to like quit completely then. But the only reason I was is because I wanted it for myself. I wanted it for my kids. I wanted to be better. And when I started to get sober, I started to realize how bad it was with my ex, and was able to go forward with actually getting a divorce because I didn't want my kids growing up thinking it was okay to treat women that way. I wanted them to be happy. And so, but it wasn't like easy at all. I remember at one point, I was afraid to go to court for the divorce. And so he asked for full custody, and he wanted me to pay child support, but I never had a job before, and they granted him everything because he said my mental health was bad. But the problem was my mental health was bad because of him, and that's
Right.
another reason why I think like the criminal justice system needs to catch up, because they often punish victims of domestic violence for what happens to them and take away their kids or do whatever. But when I found that out, I was just devastated. But I remember sitting in a meeting thinking that like somebody else is going to go through this, and if I get through this sober, I'm going to be able to help that person, because that's the only way I've been able to stay sober through a lot of rough things, because I know that I'm not alone. I learned in recovery if there's a name for it, someone else has done it. So, and I felt really unique when I first got into recovery. Like, I'm the only one. Like, I'm the only person this has happened to. But I found out quickly that there are a lot of people like me. I became friends with some people that work at the Grand Rapids Red Project, and I was able to volunteer there. And it woke me up to how much worse I could have been as well.
Absolutely.
Because looking back, it's like, if I would have gone further, that's probably the route I would have gone down. And I grew up in Christian sheltered homes, and I was introduced to like atheism. One of my best friends was an atheist, and she was like, if I go to church, I'm gonna burn and all this stuff. And so I learned a lot about different religions, different cultures, and just to be able to help other people. But looking back at how sheltered I was, it's just wild. It was just crazy, the different things to learn. What really helped me in early recovery to go to, it was called Mickey Paw, and it's the young people in AA. But they always would have like bowling or dances or just stuff to do with other people. And because I was drinking all the time before I got sober, like I needed something to preoccupy my mind.
Yeah.
I went into a recovery house, which was wild to be with a bunch of other newly sober women.
Right.
We had to do breathalyzers at morning and at night. There was people that would drink hand sanitizer to get drunk and ended up in seizures at the house I lived in. And I was allowed to stay there for 2 months, and then I had gotten diverticulitis, which is like in your intestines. Normally older people only get that. And
that's no joke.
No, it was not fun. I ended up having to have surgery. So everything worked out and lined up okay. When I got out of my marriage, they were able to find me housing and get me to a place where I could like build my credit and stuff like that, because everything was taken from me. But I am so grateful. It's Safe Haven and the YWCA are the two places. I actually work at Safe Haven now as human and sex trafficking. I'm on the board to help stop that. And I don't think I would be able to do that without all the experiences I've had. I just think it's made me so much of a broader person, and I do struggle with like depression and anxiety still, but I'm able to like take medications for that instead of drink it away. I'm able, and you can't take your medications on when you're drinking. It doesn't really work anyway.
No.
So I didn't realize that before. I remember being in a meeting with my sponsor, and she was like, I knew I had a problem when I couldn't quit drinking for long enough to take like an antibiotic. And I'm like, you're supposed to quit when you're on, like, I never knew that. I never did. But I just, my boys are 13 and 18. And I got sober when my oldest doesn't really remember me drinking. And that was a huge thing for me too, because I wanted them to have something healthy to look up to. Their dad ended up having seizures from alcohol, and that was not something I ever wanted them to have to deal with. So, I'm really grateful that I was able to figure out the scholarship and everything like that.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Not everybody's able to find those resources, before it's too late. So.
Yeah.
And the fact that you went on your own to get that done says a lot too.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people know that there are resources like that out there. If you ask the right questions, there's always going to be help. It doesn't matter what kind of drug you use, if you drink, whatever. Like, there's always ways, and there's always other people there that are going to help. And I wouldn't be here without the help I got, but I also want people to, like, if I can get through it, anybody can.
You have to be willing to advocate for yourself,
to
some degree. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of fall short.
Yeah, because I know that I had a poor me attitude for a while, and it wasn't until I wanted to get sober myself, because I would have continued along with that attitude had I kept drinking and like, why does all this stuff happen to me and boo-hoo? But I made a lot of choices to get myself there, and taking accountability and responsibility for the choices I made really helped, because also I didn't realize, because I was prescribed Adderall, and I think a lot of people get prescriptions for drugs and it's from a doctor, so it's okay, but that's how a lot of people, I think, end up being on harder drugs because it gets expensive if you buy it off the street, all that type of thing.
Well, yeah, eventually after years, I mean, the prescriptions quit working, so you start taking more, you start abusing your prescriptions. Now you can't get a hold of it at all because you're cut off, so naturally you turn to the streets.
Yeah.
I've seen it many, many times. I myself went through that exact thing too.
Yeah,
so.
it's just hard, and like, it's such a slippery slope, I think, just like domestic violence addiction is too, because you know, you get hurt and a doctor prescribes you opiates for that pain, and then like you said, you take more and more, and then if you go to the street, there's a lot scarier things that are in drugs now.
Deadlier too.
Yeah, like one of my best friends who introduced me to the Red Project ended up dying of an overdose, and I just remember being in her room where she died, and this was when Narcan was injected with needles, and she had all the bottles of like 40 different people's lives that she saved using it.
Oh, wow.
And then she ended up passing from that. And but like also I didn't take responsibility because I knew it wasn't my fault. And like, you have to be allowed to grieve and feel your emotions, but not blame yourself either, because that's another way of being like, poor me. She would always reach out when she wanted help, and she hadn't reached out that time, and she got laced drugs, and like now there has been for a while, but you can test your drugs and make sure there's nothing deadly in them.
Right at the Red Project, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's also Narcan that you can get from there, but they also have like vending machines for it. I always carry Narcan. I live in downtown Grand Rapids, so there's a lot of drug use there. And
we have a box right outside the door.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
It's really helpful for people, and I'm all about like, just however you want to get there, you get there. So whatever that looks like, if like you're not dying, that's like the first step, and that's really important. And if you're curious, just ask questions, because there's going to be people there to answer them. And like, I've never been shocked by anything. Like, nothing surprises me, because I've either done it or know someone that has, and I can like walk people through what it looks like to get healthier. I went back to school after getting sober for criminal justice, and I got straight A's, which I never thought was going to be possible because
awesome.
I wasn't on Adderall anymore.
Yeah.
But I was able to do that without pills, without alcohol, and it made me feel so much better. I'm so much more proud of myself.
Accomplished, yeah.
Yeah, because it's just, I didn't have a crutch to lean on, and that's, yeah, a lot of my life I did, so.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, when you're on the drugs, you think like you can't live without them.
Yeah.
But then once you actually take the time to get yourself sober, truly get sober, you look back and you're like, wait, I'm doing everything I thought I needed that for without it, and it feels way better.
It does. It's really rewarding. And I mean, when I first got sober too, it's like I overthought things, and I'm like, I can never drink again, like what? But I just took it, like they tell you, one day at a time, and now that's not even something that crosses my mind.
Right.
That's not something I want. All I think about is getting sick. If I were to pick up drinking again, and it's sick in multiple ways because I know I can't stop, and I would drink to the point of having to be sick the next day because I never thought alcohol tasted that good. It was just the feeling I would get. But it was like a numb feeling. Whatever emotions I had were just blurred because of substances. And to be able to feel even roller coasters, I always tell people, like, just like a heart monitor, you can't have the ups without the downs. If it's a straight line, you're dead.
Yeah.
And you can't just be like, you're gonna have ups and downs, but you don't know what the ups are if you didn't have the downs. And
exactly.
there's always going to be people there to accept you back. I know people get scared of using, but the thing is, we were all there once, and it's not easy. And people can make mistakes, but there's always going to be people there with open arms to help. And that, I feel like I have been able to help quite a few women get out of domestic violence situations because they didn't feel like they had anybody to talk to, or anyone that would understand. And it's embarrassing and scary, and I compare domestic violence to addiction as well, because there's like the ups and the downs, and you get almost addicted to that. So like having calm doesn't feel normal, and that's, I think, why a lot of women go back, because I've heard people say it's boring or whatever, but boring to me,
they don't want to be alone.
Yeah. And they've been convinced that that's the only person they can have. But not having those ups and downs for a while, I realized how bad that was for me. And just like the ups and downs of, it got to a point where there were no downs. I was always drunk. I was always on pills. And that is even scarier, because I was driving. When I got to rehab, I blew a .13, and I wasn't even feeling normal. I was feeling like I needed more alcohol to feel normal.
Oh.
So it just got way out of hand. But if I can go from that to being sober for almost 11 years, I think that anyone would be able to do that.
Absolutely.
So
how's your relationship with your kids now?
they both live with me. I have
Oh, yeah?
full custody of them.
That is awesome.
They don't speak to their dad much anymore because he ended up abusing them too. So I was able to completely turn that around, and I want them to have relationships with his family and everything, and I want him to be better, honestly, because I think my kids do deserve a good dad. But
Absolutely.
I wish nothing but the best for him, and I just hope that he can get there on his own. So.
Yeah. How about your parents?
It's really good. My mom, dad, and brother were all able to quit drinking after
awesome.
I did. My dad recently passed away from pancreatic cancer. Cancer sucks.
Yep.
But I've been staying with my mom and just helping her through that. I still have my own place, but just to be there for her, because they were married for like 50 years, and to lean on each other versus substances now is like a beautiful thing, because we both had drinking problems.
Yeah.
And to not have to numb out that way and actually feel the feelings is really different, but really good.
That's amazing. Seeing your family, your whole family come full circle to
Yeah.
where you all came from, and now,
Yep.
looking back and your kids being able to see what your family did too is really profound as well. So we're running out of time already. If there's one thing you could say to the people watching that are maybe going through similar situations that we spoke on today, that might be looking for some advice aside from the advice you've already given, what do you think that would be?
Just reach out to anyone. Reach out and ask questions. And if you're not ready yet, that's okay. If you start asking the questions, it might plant a seed. But I know I was tired of living behind curtains and hiding away. And my community has grown so immensely, and you'll find community too. You just have to ask.
Absolutely. Well, Danica, I want to thank you for being on the podcast with us today. It really means a lot seeing people from my community around here. Shout out to the Red Project as well. We'll have an episode airing soon about our interview with them. I just want to, if anyone out there watching this is struggling with addiction, mental health, or going through recovery, make sure you guys reach out if you want to be on our show, or if you're just looking for someone to talk to. You can always hit us up. Check out our website, tattedaddicts.com. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.